In today's video, I will show you how I transferred this entire text onto a glass surface the size of a corn kernel. The text is made from titanium and so small that it can't be read with the naked eye. Using my new technique, I can create structures in titanium on glass with a feature size as small as 20 micrometers or 0.02 millimeters. In my last video on photolithography, I created this text. To achieve this, I coated the glass with a dry film photoresist and used a mask like this one to selectively expose certain areas of the photoresist. After developing, which involves removing the unexposed parts, I could coat the slide with metal to produce this text. The limiting factor of this method was the resolution of my printer. So the goal was to project a small image of a large mask onto the photoresist using a lens system. This way I can still use a standard printer. And I would say I was successful. Compared to the results of my last video, you can clearly see the enormous difference. Still too big for you? What do you think about this? So, let's get into the process. My first attempts projecting a small image of a large mask onto the photoresist involved an enlarger like this one. These enlargers are used in analog photography to create prints from negatives. The idea was to use a light source at the bottom, which shines through the mask, and then the image of the mask is focused by a lens of the enlarger onto the microscope slide with the photoresist on the top here. I've tried many different lenses and also different ways to collimate the light source, but long story short, it didn't work. Or to be more precise, the result just wasn't good enough, which meant I had to build my own setup. After a few iterations, I arrived at this design right here. I will show you the individual components later on in more detail, but first let me give you an overview. At the bottom is the light source. Above the light source is a Fresnel lens. Above the Fresnel lens is a 3D printed holder for our masks. And at the top is a camera lens, which projects the image onto the microscope slide with a photoresist placed at the very top. I will now very briefly talk about the theory behind this setup here, but I'm by no means an expert in optics, so if I get anything wrong, please let me know in the comments. If you're looking for a YouTube channel who really knows about this stuff, you should check out Huygens Optics channel. He will also say words like chromatic or spherical aberration for you in a weirdly soothing accent. With a setup like this, you basically have two options. You could place the light source at the focal point of the Fresnel lens, then all of the light rays above the Fresnel lens would be collimated. Collimated means that they are traveling parallel to each other. They are neither converging or diverging. But this has the problem that the lens on top here can only see the area of the mask with the diameter of the lens itself. It doesn't matter if you're using a wide-angle lens, because there are no light rays coming from the sides. And as you can imagine, a lens with that diameter would be absurdly expensive, so I chose the second option. My light source is further away than the focal point, which means that the light rays above the Fresnel lens will be converging. The Fresnel lens is basically focusing the light to the lens on top here. You can see that when I place a piece of paper above the mask and raise it, the light spot gets smaller and smaller. This way, all of the light that passes through my mask is focused into my lens, which in turn means I can use a smaller lens. So I hope I got everything right there, and now let's talk about all the different components. The first thing you might notice is that the light source is mounted to a linear stage. The reason for that is that it has to be centered relative to the camera lens on the top, and a linear stage makes that process so much easier. The aluminum tape on the sides is just there to prevent stray light from exiting the diffuser setup. My current light source is a 395 nanometer LED. It's one of those cheap ones you can get on eBay for a few bucks. My first attempts involved a single LED as a point source, because from my understanding a point source would be ideal. The problem was that I wasn't able to get a homogeneous intensity of light on my photoresist. I always had a hotspot in the middle, which then means that the middle part of the photoresist is overexposed and won't be removed properly in the developing solution. This in turn means that the titanium can stick to the location of the hotspot, which leads to something that looks like this. My suspicion is that the LED itself is not a perfect point source. If I turn down the exposure of my camera, you can see that there are darker and brighter areas inside the LED itself. And I think I'm projecting those onto the photoresist. If you have a different explanation, let me know in the comments. My solution for this problem was a diffuser, or to be more precise, two of them. I am using a diffuser from an LCD monitor. With only one diffuser, you can still see a hotspot in the middle. By placing a second diffuser a few millimeters away from the first one, I'm getting a relatively homogeneous intensity of light throughout the whole area. Here you can see the holder for the mask. The mask is placed between two glass slides to ensure it lays completely flat. For the masks, I use a special transparent printing paper for screen printing, just as I did in my last video. This paper has a special coating on one side, which enables it to take up a lot more ink than normal transparent paper. You can see the huge difference if you compare a screen printing paper to a normal transparent paper against the light. At the top you can see the already mentioned camera lens. It is a Minolta 35 to 70mm lens, which means I can use it to project differently sized images of the mask onto the photoresist. But for this video I will use the smallest magnification possible. These clamps are used to hold down the microscope slide so I get repeatable results. You can see that I also mounted a USB microscope on top here, but more on that later. Before we can finally start the actual process, I first have to talk about the photoresist I'm using. In the beginning, I've tried using this dry film photoresist, which I've also used in my last video. But despite my best efforts, I wasn't able to get consistently good results with it. Which meant I had to find a liquid photoresist that can be spin coated. I then tried this R1000 photoresist from Mungolux, and maybe I was using it wrong, but I wasn't able to get any usable results at all. The problem is that, at least in Germany, it is very hard to find a professional photoresist. It's not like you find this stuff on eBay or Amazon. In the end, I found a German company called Microchemicals, which sells a huge variety of different photochemicals. And this is the AZLNR003, which is specially meant for lift-off techniques. I honestly wasn't quite sure which photoresist to buy, so I chose the one which can be exposed with higher wavelength UV light and can be developed with a sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide solution. The only problem was that the resist was very expensive. Even with a 30% discount because the resist was about to expire, I still paid $170 for 100 milliliters. So at this point I want to thank my Patreons. Without your financial support it wouldn't be possible for me as a student to buy these expensive materials for my projects. If you also want to become a Patreon, you can find a link in the video description. So now let's finally get to the process. I start by cleaning the microscope slides with acetone and then 99.9% isopropyl alcohol. If you've watched my last video, you might remember that I used to let the microscope slides sit in a solution of potassium hydroxide and isopropyl alcohol for a few hours. But after watching Applied Science video again, I noticed that he mentioned only cleaning the slides with IPA and it was sufficient, so I've tried it and, well, turns out he was right, so that's what I'm doing. What is important is to wipe the slides in the end with a dry paper towel to remove any residue of the IPA. This way I haven't had any problems with the photoresist or the titanium not adhering to the glass. Before I coat the microscope slides, I place them on a hot plate at 250 degrees Celsius. This improves the adhesion of the photoresist to the glass and also drives off any residual moisture. Whenever I'm working with a photoresist, I turn off the lights in my basement, because those are fluorescent lights, and as you might know, they contain mercury, which emits light in the ultraviolet spectrum. This UV light is then converted to visible light with a phosphor layer on the inside of the glass. But they still emit some UV light, which will expose the photoresist. To coat the microscope slides, I'm using this spin coater here, which I've built from a brushless motor meant for drones and a 3D printed housing. It is not perfect, but it does the job. I can then just place the microscope slide on the spin coater, add a drop of photoresist, and the centrifugal forces will push the photoresist outward, creating a very thin and consistent layer. I don't care if the microscope slide is not completely covered with photoresist, because I'm only using the very middle part of it. After coating the slides, a pre-exposure bake has to be performed. The pre-exposure bake basically dries the photoresist, and in my experience the exact temperature and duration is crucial for a good and reliable result. I've spent countless hours optimizing those parameters, and the ones you see in the video are the best in my case. It doesn't necessarily mean that they work best for you. Now that the microscope slides are ready for exposure, we have to set the correct focus. For that, I'm using a microscope slide coated with photoresist on which the surface has been sanded with a very fine sandpaper. I just mount it to the assembly and turn on the UV light. I can then adjust the focus of the microscope and of the camera lens itself to get a sharp image of the mask onto the photoresist. Due to the rough sanded surface, the contrast looks a lot worse than it actually is. I have now changed the microscope slide, which has a photoresist that has not been sanded, and as you can see, it looks a lot better. The problem is that I cannot use a smooth microscope slide from the beginning, because I have no idea on which point to focus my microscope. There is a pretty wide range where it seems to be in focus, but I'm actually focusing the image inside the microscope slide or on the other side of the microscope slide, but due to the out of focus microscope, it actually looks in focus. So I'm using the rough slide to adjust the focus of the microscope. Now we can install the actual microscope slide with the photoresist we want to expose. I have a second microscope slide with a piece of black fabric glued to it, and I'm clamping it behind the first one to absorb any UV light that makes it through the first slide to prevent it from reflecting from the back surface and exposing areas I don't want to have exposed. We can now start the exposure, which in my case takes 3 minutes. It is important not to move around too much during the exposure, because as you can see, if I focus the microscope onto the aluminum frame and walk next to it, it vibrates. And those vibrations of course degrade the contrast. Before I can start developing the photoresist, I have to perform what's called a post-exposure bake. In my case, it is done at 100 degrees Celsius for 30 seconds. This post-exposure bake finalizes the photoreaction initiated by the UV light, otherwise the photoresist would just completely wash off during development. And I have an aluminum block here to immediately cool down the microscope slide. As my developing solution, I'm using a 5 gram per liter sodium hydroxide solution in distilled water. I am moving the microscope slide around in the developing solution for 40 seconds to remove all of the non-exposed photoresist. After that, I'm rinsing it with distilled water and put it on the spin coater for a few seconds to remove most of the water before drying it with a hot air gun. After developing, you can barely make out the text in the photoresist itself. But using the microscope, you can clearly see that the photoresist which has not been exposed to UV light has been washed away in the developing solution. And yes, I know that I could really use a better microscope, but I have to work with what I have. So now it is time to coat these slides in titanium. The slides are mounted onto a holder that I can place in my vacuum chamber. What you see here inside the chamber is called a magnetron, which I will use to coat the slides with titanium. If you're interested in how the magnetron works, I recommend my videos on this topic. You will find them in the video description. After sealing the chamber, I start my rotary vane pump, followed by the turbomolecular pump. By introducing argon into the chamber, I achieve a pressure of approximately 1 × 10 to the power of -2 millibars. When I apply a voltage to the magnetron, you can see the plasma. In this plasma, argon ions knock titanium atoms out of the target, which then deposit onto the slides. If you look closely, you can see how the glass loses its transparency and slowly develops a reflective surface. After coating with titanium, the photoresist covering the areas of the glass that shouldn't be coated needs to be removed. For this I use acetone. You can clearly see how the photoresist dissolves and the unwanted titanium lifts off when you place the slides in the acetone. You can then carefully remove the lifted titanium with a brush. After that, I rinsed the slides with isopropyl alcohol and distilled water and dried them again with a hot air gun. The result is, oh, it looks like I've made a tiny segue to a sponsor. A few minutes ago, you saw me using a magnetron that I designed myself. However, since I don't own a milling machine or a lathe, I had no way to manufacture the components for my magnetron myself. But fortunately, PCBWay, besides of course making PCBs, not only offers 3D printing, sheet metal fabrication and injection molding, but also CNC machining. You simply upload your file on their website, select the desired material from a variety of options, and get an instant price estimate. I think it's wonderful that this gives so many hobbyists the opportunity to bring their ideas to life, and that's why I'm happy to have PCBWay as a sponsor. And now to the actual results. By now I've made a lot of test pieces, those are just a few of them, and I've optimized the process to a point where I get good and repeatable results almost every time. On the screen right now you can see the structure created with this mask right here. The dimensions on the mask are accurate, and by measuring the dimensions of the structure in titanium, I was able to determine that I'm getting an approximately 15-time reduction in size. And by measuring the line thickness, I determined that I'm getting a resolution of approximately 20 micrometers. To measure those distances, I'm using a calibration slide, and my microscope is actually not able to see the smallest division here, which is 0.01 millimeters, but that doesn't matter. I just took a screenshot of this picture here and measured the pixels from the divisions I could see, which is 0.05 millimeters. And then with the same magnification, I took screenshots of all the other structures and measured the pixels there. And this way I could determine that I'm having a feature size of approximately 20 micrometers, some even a little bit smaller. I didn't want to place the calibration slide on top or below the titanium structures, because this way, due to perspective, one of them would of course appear larger. Here you can see the structure which I have created using this mask right here. And even at the smallest circles, the lines are separated from each other. Here are two where at some points they're fusing together, but I suspect that there was some dust or dirt on the microscope slide. Or maybe it was just bad development. I also made a very small octastylar cubane structure using this mask right here. I've also tried making very small pictures using a vector file which I have created from a normal picture, which is very useful for reasons. Overall, I'm very happy with the results. But that doesn't mean that there isn't room for improvement. For example, you can see that the bottom of those letters, for example the K, the N, the I, they should be perfectly square, but they are rounded. And that is probably a result from poor contrast. I will maybe try to use a lens with a smaller f value to improve the diffraction limit. Another reason for my poor contrast could be the Fresnel lens, but I don't see a way I could replace this. If you have any ideas, let me know. A huge thank you goes to Breaking Tabs and everyone else in the Vacuum Discord giving me useful advice for this project. I will definitely try to improve the resolution further. If you want to be part of that journey, consider subscribing. Other than that, thank you a lot for watching. And for everyone who made it to the very end of this video, here's my reaction after finally achieving a good result after countless failures.